In 2006, during the height of the war, the U.S. Army establishes outposts in northern Afghanistan, aiming to combat the insurgents and reach out to the locals in hopes that they would give up their weapons and cooperate. One such outpost is PRT Kamdesh, which is isolated in a valley and surrounded by towering mountains. This position causes the outpost to earn the nickname Death Trap. One night, a new group of soldiers is transferred to Kamdesh. Although they're not thrilled to be there, they quickly bond with the soldiers who have already been stationed at the outpost. As they settle in, one of the newcomers notices an inscription under a bunk bed that reads, "It doesn't get better." The following morning, the new recruits take in their surroundings as the other soldiers explain how the insurgents frequently use the surrounding mountains for surprise attacks. As they adjust, the men spot a stray dog. Zahid prepares to shoot it, but Skuza, one of the soldiers, stops him. Skuza has taken the dog in as a pet. However, the calm is short-lived as insurgents suddenly open fire from the mountains. The soldiers scramble for cover and start shooting back, dodging explosions erupting within the outpost. Caught off guard, they quickly run low on ammunition, and Carter is dispatched to retrieve more. Unfortunately, he returns with the wrong kind of bullets, prompting an argument before Carter is sent back to retrieve the correct ammo. The soldiers keep firing, and eventually, they use a mortar to obliterate the enemy's position, securing a short-lived victory. After the battle, tensions flare as Galiagas kicks down Younger for firing too close to his head. Once Carter returns with the correct ammunition, he's berated for arguing during a critical moment in battle. Meanwhile, the soldiers discover one of their comrades has suffered severe facial injuries, and they quickly call for a medic. After some time, they receive news that their injured friend has survived surgery and will soon rejoin them. Elsewhere, Captain Keating reprimands a young soldier found smoking marijuana. Instead of cutting his pay, knowing money means little in such a dangerous place, Keating demotes him to private and cancels his free time. The next day, Keating addresses the need to improve relations with the local populace and organizes a shura, a traditional Muslim council meeting where important matters are discussed. A few days later, the soldiers attend the shura to meet with the village elders. Despite the locals being armed, Keating leaves his weapons and protective gear outside to demonstrate his peaceful intentions. With Muhammad acting as their interpreter, Keating tries to convince the elders to separate themselves from the Taliban to ensure their safety. He also offers financial support and contracts to sweeten the deal. During the meeting, a gunshot residue test reveals that one of the local guards participated in a recent attack. Keating insists on reporting this, which would cause the guard to lose honor in the eyes of his elders. After a heated debate, the elders make their group disarm, and Keating shares an embrace with the leader. That night, the soldiers relax, grilling meat, drinking, and sharing stories from home. They even dance to some music to unwind. The following day, the peace is shattered once again as the insurgents attack from the mountains. The soldiers immediately take cover and return fire, but this skirmish doesn't last long. A while later, Hart angrily drags Younger from his room after discovering that Younger had stolen a picture of Hart's wife to satisfy himself. As punishment, Hart makes Younger do push-ups while apologizing to the photo, but Younger kisses it mockingly anyway. Meanwhile, Keating receives orders to move a large tactical vehicle to Nahe, despite concerns about the narrow mountain roads. Keating reminds the soldiers that orders must be followed and volunteers to drive the vehicle himself. For several hours, a small truck leads the massive vehicle along the treacherous mountain path. The road is too narrow, and the vehicle's tires slip dangerously close to the edge multiple times. By nightfall, they are forced to stop when they detect something suspicious ahead. Upon further inspection, they discover it's just a dead chicken. The convoy moves forward again, but disaster strikes when the tactical vehicle veers off the edge of the cliff and explodes, killing Keating and the soldiers inside. Back at the outpost, the fallen soldiers are given a solemn funeral. Soon after, Ulescas arrives as the new captain and is briefed on the constant threat of mountain attacks. As if on cue, the insurgents strike again, this time with an explosion, and once again, the soldiers are forced to fight back. One soldier, who had been in the shower, rushes to join the battle while still naked. After the attack, Ulescas sends a patrol team out, but the soldiers complain about the pointlessness of the task. During the patrol, Romek uses the opportunity to explain how a well-coordinated assault could exploit the outpost's weaknesses, specifically targeting the supply buildings and generators. A few days later, Kirk spots a local taking pictures of the outpost and chases him down. The man nearly escapes, but Kirk catches him with the help of another soldier. Upon examining the man's phone, they find photos of the area. The man is cuffed, and Thompson stands guard while sharing a sad story about the scars on his arm. Another shura is held, but this time only half the village elders attend. They express frustration over the unpaid funds Keating had promised. Ulescas explains that the money will be held until the investigation into the captured locals' pictures is completed. That evening, Muhammad, the interpreter, returns from the village with grim news. The Taliban is planning a large-scale attack because the villagers are angry about the missing payments. However, his warnings are dismissed because he is known to cry wolf frequently. Later, Ulescas leads another patrol. Muhammad listens in on the radio to intercept enemy chatter but claims he cannot understand certain dialects. At a bridge, Kirk and Carter cross first to ensure it's safe. As Ulescas and Younger cross next, an explosion rocks the bridge. Younger survives, but Ulescas falls into the river dead. Blood splatters on Younger's face and mouth, leaving him in shock. That night, the soldiers cope with their grief by playing music. Romek hears a noise and finds Leska trembling and muttering to himself with a weapon in hand. Romek carefully removes the bullets while comforting Leska, sharing a personal story of watching a close friend die from a sniper. However, it's clear that Younger's mental state has deteriorated, and when a helicopter arrives to retrieve Ulesca's body, Younger leaves the outpost as well. The chopper also brings the new leader Broward, who informs the soldiers that the outpost will close in July and instructs them to focus on preparing for the shutdown. The next day, the soldiers present Broward with an Afghan ID they found near the bridge, believing the man to be a worker from the hydroelectric plant. They request permission to search the villages, but Broward forbids it, citing rules of engagement and leaving the matter to the investigating officer. Romash's protests are ignored. As time passes, the soldiers do their best to stick to routine. Soon, another attack erupts from the mountains. Romek calls Broward for backup, but Broward insists on positive weapon identification first. Skuza uses binoculars to confirm the target, and reinforcements arrive just in time to help fend off the attack. Afterward, Broward reiterates the importance of the rules of engagement, reminding the soldiers they cannot fire on someone merely acting suspiciously. Radio or weapon identification must come first. Romek tries to argue again, pointing out that they were clearly under attack, but Broward is unwilling to waste ammunition or risk worsening relations with the locals. Eventually, Broward announces that due to pressure from the Afghan president, the outpost will not be closed in July as planned. Instead, the soldiers will receive a $1,000 raise, and they might leave by October. The soldiers follow orders but grow increasingly frustrated with Broward, especially because he urinates in bottles in his room and makes them dispose of them. During a rainstorm, Carter shivers from the cold while keeping guard and chats with Gallegos over the radio about religion. That night, some movement is detected on the mountains, and an explosion goes off in the distance. Broward authorizes the soldiers to fire a mortar as a warning, and though he initially gives the wrong coordinates, the team corrects him, and the mortar is fired successfully. In the morning, a meeting is held to discuss the situation. The late-night movement suggests that the insurgents now have night vision capabilities, but the source of their weapons remains unknown. The meeting is interrupted by the arrival of the village elders, who have brought the body of a dead girl, accusing the Americans of killing her. The soldiers quickly realize the girl has been dead for days, likely killed by the Taliban to frame the Americans. However, Broward agrees to pay the villagers to avoid further conflict. During the discussion, the elders reveal that they know the Americans are planning to leave, information that was supposed to be classified. Suddenly, one of the elders cries out in pain after being bitten by Skuza's dog. In their culture, being bitten by a dog is considered deeply shameful, and the elders demand retribution. Without hesitation, Broward shoots the dog and scolds Skuza for keeping a pet in a war zone. Later, the soldiers entertain themselves by competing to see who can endure waterboarding the longest. Their game is interrupted when Broward announces that he has been relieved of duty, and a new captain will arrive in a few weeks. He also confirms that the outpost will officially close on October 6. However, before the new captain can arrive, the insurgents launch their largest and most coordinated attack yet. In the early hours of October 3, 2009, the soldiers at PRT Kamdesh wake up to the sound of gunfire and rocket-propelled grenades (RPGs) as the insurgents descend upon the outpost from all sides. The surrounding mountains become a death trap, just as feared. Hundreds of Taliban fighters storm the outpost with a devastating amount of force. The soldiers scramble to their battle stations, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of enemy fire. RPGs and mortars rain down on their positions, causing chaos and destruction. Romek and the others quickly realize the seriousness of the situation. This is not just a skirmish, it's an all-out assault. The Taliban fighters have infiltrated the perimeter and are advancing rapidly. Communication with higher command is difficult, but Romek manages to get a call through, desperately requesting air support and reinforcements. Broward, still in command for a short time, struggles to keep order as the soldiers fight to repel the attack. The fighting is intense and relentless. The outpost's supply buildings and generators, as Romek had previously warned, become primary targets. Explosions rock the base, sending debris flying and cutting off power. The soldiers are forced to fight in darkness, illuminated only by the flashes of gunfire and explosions. Broward, caught off guard by the ferocity of the attack, attempts to rally the men, but it's clear that the situation is dire. Inside the outpost, Skuza and Zahid defend the main entrance, laying down suppressing fire as enemy fighters attempt to breach the walls. Zahid, who had been hesitant at times, fights with a newfound determination, knowing that survival depends on every shot. Meanwhile, Romek leads a small team to secure the Tactical Operations Center (TOC), which has been heavily damaged by mortar fire. Inside, they find that much of the equipment has been destroyed, making it difficult to coordinate their defense. In the midst of the chaos, Carter, who had once been ridiculed for his mistakes, steps up to lead a counteroffensive. He directs fire toward the advancing Taliban fighters and organizes a plan to hold the line at all costs. His bravery and quick thinking help slow the enemy's progress, giving the soldiers a brief respite. However, it's clear that they are heavily outnumbered and outgunned. As the hours pass, the battle becomes more desperate. Reinforcements are on their way, but they're still hours from arriving, and the soldiers at Kamdesh know they have to hold out until then. The air support they desperately need is delayed due to poor weather conditions, and the situation grows more critical with every passing minute. Romek and the remaining soldiers continue to fight, but casualties mount. Several soldiers are gravely injured, and morale begins to waver. Gallegos, who had been a steady presence throughout their time at the outpost, is struck by shrapnel from an RPG. The soldiers pull him to safety, but his injuries are severe. Despite the pain, Gallegos urges his comrades to keep fighting, refusing to let the outpost fall. Finally, after hours of brutal combat, the reinforcements arrive, along with air support. Attack helicopters and fighter jets unleash their firepower on the Taliban positions, driving the enemy back and giving the soldiers at Kamdesh a much-needed breather. The insurgents retreat into the mountains, and the outpost is secure, though at a heavy cost. In the aftermath, the soldiers survey the devastation. The outpost is in ruins, and several of their comrades have paid the ultimate price. The Battle of Kamdesh becomes one of the deadliest engagements of the war in Afghanistan, a testament to the courage and resilience of the soldiers who fought there. The new captain finally arrives to oversee the evacuation of the outpost. The soldiers, battle-weary and grieving, prepare to leave Kamdesh behind. As they load up their gear and say goodbye to the place they had called home for so long, they reflect on the sacrifices they made and the lives lost. For some, the experience has left them hardened, while for others, it's a reminder of the fragility of life in a war zone. As the last of the soldiers board the helicopters and fly away from Kamdesh, the outpost is left abandoned, a stark symbol of the cost of war. The battle may be over, but the memories of what happened at PRT Kamdesh will stay with them forever. As you can see, the gripping story of the soldiers stationed at PRT Kamdesh is filled with tension, heartbreak, and bravery. From the dangers of the terrain to the constant threat of insurgent attacks, these soldiers face unimaginable challenges while forging deep bonds in the heat of battle. Each moment at the outpost brings new risks and unexpected outcomes, making this story one that keeps you on the edge of your seat. If you enjoyed this detailed recap and want to stay updated on more intense and thrilling content like this, don't forget to subscribe to Rushrecap. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below.